Okay, guys, so we're cruising along in a tootie boat off of the Porkies here, and I'm just listening to stories that Harold's telling me of, all of his adventures, which he's had way more than I even knew about. And I'm probably going to put these on the backup channel. If you're watching, then you're already here. But I should have turned the phone on like an hour ago. I apologize. So, Harold, you've also done some diving. You've been a diver.
Yeah, about 7 years. I'm a 7-year diver.
Okay. And would you please tell the folks about the ship that you off the Huron Islands you were just telling me about?
Yeah, a friend of ours, his name is Al Marcotte. I don't know if he still lives by Lance or not. He invited us to go out and dive on this sunken sail ship that ran into the Huron Islands. And he had found it 3 days before that. And everything was on it. It looked just like a Walt Disney movie where you come down and the cross arms are still on the mast and there's ropes and rigging.
Pieces of sail, you say?
Absolutely. Everything that was on the boat was still there. And like I say, it was like a Walt Disney movie, getting a chance to come down on this boat. Now, you're only allowed, at 128 feet, you're only allowed to stay there for about 15 minutes.
Okay. How big was the ship, roughly?
I would say it was maybe 110 feet, something like that.
Okay. I mean, I'll bet you somebody knows what ship that is. They chronicled it, know where it went down.
Somebody might. There again, nobody had dove on it before. Al Marcotte, they would do these spot dives. They'd go along with a fish finder, and any lump on the bottom, they'd crash dive it. They'd jump over the edge of the boat and down there just to see what it was that they were noticing, and then if it was nothing, they'd just do it some more until they found something that was worthwhile diving on. And it was probably the most spectacular dive. We had logged, Carl Weinert and I, 476 dives in Lake Superior with our sea scooters and other types of diving in 7 years. But that was the most spectacular one.
Did you have to have a learning curve where you kind of got past your nervousness, or did you just never had a fear of that?
Well, yeah, everybody has fear, and everybody can panic. I mean, there's a limit. I don't care who you are. When things get bad enough, you're going to get scared. We didn't buddy dive, though. A lot of people would say we were nuts, but we didn't do that.
You mean you all just go down independently?
Yeah, well, we decided that, we were forever getting too far apart and couldn't see one another. Well, you can't just keep coming to the surface every 10 minutes. Your ears, to clear your ears and all of that. Finally, we would practice free ascents. And I got really good at it from 80, 100 feet. Coming to the surface, they call it blow and go. And the air in your lungs just keeps expanding. You never really starve for air. And you get good at that, because if you're trying to go to your buddy to get air and he doesn't want to, he's got to make a decision whether he wants to give you his regulator or not. And you're already out of air. You're already starving. We decided that we were better off just to start heading to the surface rather than try to swim 50 feet over to that guy and tap on him and see if he's going to give you the regulator, and about that time you start fighting over the regulator. So the only time we would a buddy dive is if we were going deeper than 100 feet. Then we did that.
Okay. Now, I've heard of something called the bends, and you have to come up slow so you don't
yeah. Both him and I, with our sea scooters and that, because the tank of air would last for so long, he went to a doctor once and he says, you scuba dive or something? And he said, yeah. He said, because he complaining he had pain in his shoulders, and I do too. And he says, I get the impression that you've had the bends. And he said, well, that's possible, So, but I used to try to gradually come up, no matter how long I was down. And I tried to be responsible. I had a dive watch, and I would watch time. But those sea scooters were bad because you didn't have to breathe much. And a tank of 80 cubic foot tank of air would last me 3.5 hours.
Were you using, I don't know much about diving, so these might be very dumb questions, but I mean, did you use tanks on your back, or did you have a tank on the surface with a hose?
Back.
Okay.
We'd have back, and we'd have most of the time 2 tanks a day we'd use. I'd say most of our diving was 50, 60 feet deep. We would pick stretches of shoreline. One guy would run 60, 70 feet deep on the way down, and then we both shift in a little bit so the next part of our dive before we got out was shallower, so it would give us a chance to get rid of the nitrogen in our systems. Then we went to the Florida Keys there every winter for 2 weeks. We'd always tell our wives we're going for 2 weeks, and we'd never make her back in less than 3. But yeah.
What other shipwrecks did you dive on? I'm gonna find out which one that is off the Huron Islands. I probably have a way to figure that out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think they must have documented it by now, but there probably haven't been a lot of people on that. Because it's in a very obscure place. I don't know if I could find it again. I really don't. That was, I mean, we're talking 40 years ago.
Yeah, it probably you might have been the first one to find it that long ago. Yeah.
Well, I know Al Marcotte did. Nobody knew where. Nobody ever was on that before he found it. That was
a lot of ships that went down on Lake Superior. That's for sure.
Lots of them. A lot of them that haven't never been dove on. And feasibly, you get past 200 feet. That's beyond sport diving. You shouldn't do that. You can get serious trouble. You get nitrogen narcosis, and it's about like getting too much fentanyl or something like that, or it's dangerous. To make them mad at me or nothing, but some people really don't like it.
Harold, this is a really nice feature for any boat, a transom door. Was that your idea, or was that part of the plans?
Well, I put the swim platforms on each side of the box. I decided it would stiffen up the engine box. There's 4 stainless steel 1/2-inch rods come from the back of that box and go through the transom, and then it's tied into the keel inside. So when you slam her in reverse by accident or something like that, the engine doesn't fly off the back of the boat. So.
I'm glad you reminded me to ask about the keel. What size keel do you have on here?
I've got about a 6-inch keel that runs 3/4 of the length of the boat. So it does track pretty straight. Anybody that's been on a lot of boats that they go like a serpent through the water.
Yeah. That's my one complaint about the Vagabond. It probably can't help it because it's almost as wide as it is long. It's a big fat,
the
fat
keel
short.
Helps out a lot. I don't know if you got one on there.
It does have a little one, but it's still. I mean, everyone that has a Vagabond complains about this. There's a few ways to kind of improve it, but at the end of the day,
go faster. It probably tracks better.
Yeah.
But this one here, I made it a couple inches deeper than he said to in the plans, and it made a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, the Vagabond kind of ties you at the wheel a lot, unfortunately. My barge, I could walk around and make a cup of coffee and still go straight.
Well, yeah, this one here Well, if there's wind, it's water. I mean, you got to pretty much.
Yeah, unless you got one, like you just said, the guy with the Hatteras.
Yeah.
He probably just sets the autopilot. Yeah.
I thought about putting autopilot on it, and then I said, well, hey, I'm going boating, and I got to have something to do anyway.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, why else you there, you know?
It'll track pretty good. I can come back here and do stuff, and I go out there fishing sometimes, and I'll be making breakfast while, just chugging along, and I don't care. There isn't anybody else out there fishing anyway, so if it goes a little crooked, well, it goes a little crooked.
That's right. So you never felt the need to put like a kicker motor or an auxiliary motor on the back?
I made a mount there for one, and I carried one, a 6-horse. But I found that this thing here will idle down just fine, and I can get it right down to about 1.5 miles. Which
is what lake trout like.
That's right. I usually troll for about 2 to 2.3 for most of my lake trout fishing and stuff.
I haven't been fishing for a week. I've been working. Where are the fish now?
The Indians took them home.
Yeah. More so in the Apostles, but yeah, even here. They gone deep yet?
No. A friend of mine, he was out there at about 120 feet of water, but he was catching them about 25 feet down.
Oh, okay.
So he caught a salmon and
was this Dennis Forsland?
Yeah, he's a real fisherman. I don't have the array of stuff. I just use 2 poles with 4 hooks.
Yeah.
And that's all. That's enough for me to take care of.
Well, guys, on my backup channel, I'll put a link below. I did a video on Dennis Forsland. He is one of the original old school Finnish Yooper sportsmen. I think that's actually what I called the video.
Exactly what he was here last night. He came down and had a beer together last night.
He is a cool guy.
Yeah.